Okay, good morning, everybody. Sorry for the delay. I had a little trouble getting the MacBook Air to recognize the Elmo this morning. It's like, who are you? I have no idea where the Elmo is. Right? Anyway, everything is working well now. Today's warm-up is kind of weird. Okay, no diamonds. All I want to do is I want to show you how to do what's called the portion web. Okay, let me show you how to do that. And I want to show you how to use the distributive property. Those are two big things in this chapter that we can use some extra practice with. I want to remind you that the portion web is explained fairly well on page 126 in your math book, right? If you're using the ebook, it is in lesson 3.1.5, okay? They go through it here and in detail here, and how to change from decimal to percent, how to change from fraction to percent, from decimal to fraction, from percent to decimal, from percent to fraction, and from fraction to decimal. Okay, so you go all the way around this thing, and all of the numbers that end up being in your portions web are equal. They all represent the same thing. Okay, so you want to know that. And just make use of that book. Make use of the ebook. I want to remind everybody, as much as we do these videos for anything out of the book, you also have available to you, if you sign up for the ebook and log in, almost every homework problem has a hint for you, and sometimes multiple hints. And sometimes the hints get so detailed that it pretty much gives you the answer. So if you're ever stuck and the video's not helping, log into that ebook and check out those hints, okay? All right. And of course, the best thing you could do is ask your teacher for help, because that's like giving us cookies, and everybody loves warm cookies, right? All right. Okay, so here we go. Portions web. Okay? What we have is we have fractions go on top. Okay? On the left side down here is a decimal, right? On the right side is a percent. And in the middle is a picture and sometimes both, if you can, words to describe what that number is. Okay? So here we have a 3/4. We want to figure out how to draw a picture of that, how to write a decimal, and how to write percent for 3/4. Okay? So first thing I want to show you is how to change a fraction to a decimal. What do you do there? Well, I would say just divide the bottom into the top. So 3/4 equals 4 into 3. And you'll say, but Mr. Daniel, it won't fit. And again, you've heard me say this before probably, it'll never fit unless the fraction's improper, right? If it's not an improper fraction, the number on top, the numerator, is always smaller than the number on the bottom. It's part of a whole, right? Remember how we say whole numbers? And you say, that's just confusing me. Well, because now we're doing with parts of whole numbers. It's not the whole thing. It's 3/4 of the thing, right? Same thing with decimals. It's not the whole thing. It's 6/10 of the thing, or it's 65%, okay? So whole numbers versus fractions, decimals, percents. All you're doing is dividing the bottom and the top. Now, why are we doing this? Remember, we're trying to change a fraction to a decimal. This helps you remind you, what do you do when it won't fit? Well, you add a decimal and bring it up and add a 0, right? All I did is said that 3 is the same as 3.0. You get that, right? 3 is the same as 3.0. $3 equals $3. I can add decimals and zeros, and it's not going to change the value. Okay, but once I've added the 0, now I start dividing. 4 goes into 30 about 7 times, right? Because 7 times 4 is 28. I subtract. Since I get a remainder, I'm going to add another 0. And 4 goes into 20, nice even 5 times. So 3/4 is the same as 0.75, or 75 hundredths. So that makes sense, because 3/4 is 75 cents, right? 3/4 of a dollar. 4 quarters makes a buck. 3/4 makes 75 cents. That looks good, right? Now, all you have to do to change the decimal to percent this is the easiest part, is you move the decimal 2 spots to the right. So if it was before the 7, I moved it 2 spots. Now it's after the 5. 0.75 is 75%. How hard was that? All you have to do is remember it, right? So 75%. And vice versa. If I'm going from a percent to a decimal, I'm just going to go 2 spots to the left. Right? 2 spots to the left if I want to go from percent to decimal. So if there was no decimal, it starts on the right. Boom, boom. It is 0.65, right? And a lot of people put a 0 in front of that in the ones place. So we recognize that there's a decimal there, right? It sort of brings it to our eye, right? Because that decimal's kind of small, but once you put a 0 there, you say, why are you starting a number with a 0? Oh, there must be a decimal. Okay? So easy going on the bottom, right? From decimal to percent, you move the decimal 2 spots to the right. From percent to decimal, 2 spots to the left. What if it was something like 0.042, right? Well, again, if I want to change this to a percent, I'm just moving it 2 spots to the right. Now it goes from here to between the 4 and the 2, 4.2%. Yeah, you can have part of a percent, 4.2%, right? Okay, what if it was a big number, more than 100%, 125%? Well, I'm moving it 2 spots to the left, boom, boom, and it ends up being 1.25. Okay, you can do that. All right, so everybody agrees going on the bottom from decimal to percent or percent to decimal, those are simple Simon, right? All right, so here I'm going 2 spots. I end up with an empty space there, right? Fill in the egg carton. So 0.6 is not 6%, it's 60%. Okay, you move it 2 spots. If there's an empty spot there, you got to fill it with an egg, right? All right, so those are easy. On to the fraction. How do you change a decimal to a fraction? Well, if you closed your eyes and I said 6/10, you wouldn't know if I said this or 6/10, right? And again, you can change any decimal to a fraction. In fact, sometimes it helps you read it, right? If you have one of these big decimals, 0.0104 here, and you want to know how to say that instead of saying 0.0104, how do real educated mathematicians say this number, right? Well, you take every number to the right of the decimal, 0.0104, you put it on top, put zeros under each of those, and I'm only doing this one because it's to the right of the decimal. I'm not doing this one. And then you put a 1 in front of it. So this is 104/10,000ths. Any decimal, 6.5, I put it on top, put zeros under each, put a 1 in front, 65/100ths. 6, I put the 6 on top, I put a 0 under it, put a 1 in front of it, 6/10ths, 6/10ths. Now, when you change it to a fraction, sometimes you want to simplify when you're done, okay? What does that mean? That means if you could find a number that goes into both the numerator and the denominator, the top and the bottom, then you can make that fraction simpler, right? It's the same value, but you'll write it simpler. Okay, so 6/10 are both, 6 and 10 are both even, so I know 2 goes into both of those. How many times does 2 go into 6? Hopefully you're thinking 3. How many times does 2 go into 10? 5. So 3/5 is the same as 6/10. And you might remember that from, all I did was work backwards from the magic 1, right? If I took 3/5 and I wanted to make it into tenths, I multiply it by 1. 5 times 2, 3 times 2. Okay, so I'm kind of going backwards when I simplify a fraction. Now, what goes into both 65 and 100? Well, this ends in a 5, this ends in a 0. So it's not even, right? Because 5 is not even, 100 is even. But 5 goes into any number that ends in a 5 or a 0. So I know that 5 goes into 65. Okay, and sometimes you got to come over here and divide. Now, I know that 6 times 12 is 60 from the clock, so I know this is going to be 13. But you go divide if you want, all right? So 13 on top, 5 goes into 100, 20 times. Okay, so 13/20ths. Now here I had a picture, and that looks like 5/8, right? And that makes sense. There's 8 equal little rectangles here, and 5 of them are shaded in, so 5/8. Now how do I go from fraction to a decimal again? Divide the bottom into the top. I need a little space on this one. It won't fit, Mr. Daniel. Add a decimal, bring it up, and add a 0, right? 5 is 5.0. Now 8 goes into 50 6 times, because that's 48. I have a remainder. What do? Add another 0. 8 goes into 20 twice, because that's 16. I got another remainder. What do? Add another 0, right? And 8 goes into 40 5 times. So 0.625, or 625 thousandths. Okay, easiest one now, decimal to percent. What do? Move it 2 spots that way, right? 2 spots to the right. It was here. Now it's going to end up 2 spots between the 2 and the 5. 62.5%. All right, so what's left? Draw a picture, write in words, right? 3/4. 3. This is my least favorite, because I don't like writing. Right? Some of you are like that, huh? 3/5 and 13/20. All right, now we're drawing pictures. The 4ths is easy, right? Divide it in half, divide it in half. Now I have 4ths, shade in 4 of them. 5ths is a little harder. Rectangle. A lot of times I want to do a circle when I do 5ths. Okay. There's my 5ths, shade in 3 of them. That's 3/5. Oh no, 20th. Yikes. Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do my 5ths. All right, that's 5ths. Now what do I got? What do I divide those in half? 10ths. And divide each of those in half. Now I have 20ths, right? And that makes sense. 4 times 5 is 20. I got 20 little squares. I got to color in 13 of them. Well, 3 rows of 4, 3 columns of 4 is 12. And then 1 more box. All right. 5/8 is easy, already done. All right. That's how you do the portions webs. Okay. So what you want to know is, how do I go from percent to decimal? Move it 2 spots that way. Decimal to percent, 2 spots that way. Percent, how about percent to fraction? Well, percent literally translates to per 100. 65% is 65 per 100. We already had that, but just so you know, okay, any percent, you can change it to a fraction with the 100 underneath. Oftentimes you'll have to simplify when you're done. All right, that's the portions web. Next thing you want to know is distributive property. Distributive property. I liken it to dealing cards. You're playing a card game. These are your friends inside the parentheses. This is how many cards everyone gets, right? So I got to get the 8 times the 20 plus the 8 times the 3. 8 times the 20 plus 8 times the 3. It's 8 times 20 plus, I'm going to put this in parentheses even though I don't have to, because you multiply before you add, 8 times 3. Now, the most common mistake I got to tell you is people say this is 8 times 20, then they just add a 3. Each thing inside the parentheses gets multiplied by the thing outside. Now, that was always hard to teach, especially when you get this one, because what do you got to do here? I got to break up that 20 and a 4, right? So I got the 24 times 40 plus 6. I'm just rewriting it. Whoops. Is 24 times 40, right? Plus 24 times 6. And what is this? This is 40 times 20 plus 4. Right? Got to split that up. And this is 6 times 20 plus 4. Okay, so I got to go 40 times 20 plus 40 times 4. plus 6 times 20 plus 6 times 4. And again, this was always hard to teach, and this way might be still confusing for you. What's the easy way to do it? Turn it into a generic rectangle, right? 8 times 23, you do this, 20 and 3 and 8, and 8 times 20 goes here, 8 times 3 goes there, and just remember that each little box inside your rectangle gets its own set of parentheses. What does that mean? 8 times 20 plus 3. This box is going to get a set of parentheses. This box going to get a set of parentheses. Now, how'd you get that 160? It was 8 times 20. How'd you get that 24? It was 8 times 3. 8 times 20 plus 3 equals 8 times 20 plus 8 times 3. Okay? Same thing here. If I'm doing 24 times 46, generic rectangle, want to do the easy way. We got a 20 and a 4 and a 40 and a 6. 20 times 40 is 2 times 4 with 2 zeros. 20 times 6 is 12 with a 0. 4 times 40 is 16 with a 0. And 4 times 6. Each of these boxes gets its own parentheses. Okay, so 24 times 46 equals, how'd I get that 800? 20 times 40, right? 20 times 40. Plus, how'd I get that 160? 4 times 40. How'd I get that 120? 20 times 6. And how'd I get that 24? 4 times 6. Okay? That's how you do these. All right. Thanks for watching this. Have a great asynchronous Wednesday. We're missing you guys. All right. But we'll see you tomorrow on Aloha Thursday.